Hi, everyone. Welcome to Focusing Your Cannabis Retail Strategy for 420. We're going to wait maybe one more minute before we get started, just to let people funnel in. All right. I think we'll go ahead and get started. All right, well, hey everyone, my name is Joe Cullen. I'm a customer success manager here at Headset. First and foremost, I want to thank you for joining us. Wherever you are, we hope that you are well, that you are in good spirits and good health, and we really appreciate you carving out time to meet with us today. Before I introduce today's speakers, I do want to first address several housekeeping items. This webinar will be recorded and sent to each of you along with several other resources used throughout today's presentation. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please use the chat feature in the toolbar below. If there are any unanswered questions from today because of timing, we will follow up with answers in a blog post. And lastly, if you're not currently using Retailer Premium, the tool that will be the main focus of today's presentation, we hope that you reach out to our team for more information and a personalized demonstration, which I will also reiterate towards the end. All right, next slide, Jewel, please. So though our presenters will be using our Retailer tool to help guide the conversation, Retailer is just one tool within the larger Headset ecosystem. And for those of you who are unfamiliar or new to Headset, I want to quickly provide an overview to our suite of products. So Headset provides insight into cannabis consumer trends by way of three core products. The first is called Insights, which is our market intelligence product that provides real-time access into market level data, now serving 11 recreational markets across the US and Canada. Our second product is called Bridge, and Bridge is a tool that enables retailers to directly share sales and inventory data with their vendors to facilitate a more collaborative relationship. And this is kind of modeled off of a common retail practice called VMI, or vendor managed inventory. And lastly, Retailer, which most of you are likely using, is our third product. And Retailer is a business intelligence tool designed for cannabis retailers to better track their sales, optimize inventory practices, and ultimately streamline operations. All right, next slide. Now, within Retailer, we have several product solutions to really meet you wherever you are and help you succeed at every stage of your business, whether or not you're just getting off the ground or you've been in the business for a while. So we offer Retailer Starter, which is a product that helps you build a go-to-market strategy before your doors even open. Retailer Pulse, which gives you a fundamental tool set to help you analyze your business once your doors open. And then last year, we launched Retailer Premium, which is a product add-on to Retailer Pulse, just giving you an additional layer of tools to analyze your customer, their purchasing behavior, and their baskets. And the tools within Retailer Premium are really grounded in a common goal that all of us have, which is to grow revenue. And when thinking about growing revenue, you can really think about it as the product of two fundamental components: number of shoppers in your store and the average spend per shopper. And the 420 holiday represents a ripe opportunity for you as a retailer to really lean into both of those levers, to drive larger baskets and to increase the number of shoppers in your store. And so it's really important to ground your retail strategy, whatever that may be, with those two goals in mind. As we talk about promotional strategy today, I do want to emphasize that your strategy may differ from what we discussed. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach. But I think today's content will highlight the fact that promotional strategy goes beyond just discounting, which I find a lot of retailers limit themselves to. Discounting is important, but there are other creative ways to drive customers into the store and incentivize larger baskets without necessarily compromising your margins. And before I hand it over to our speakers, I do want to share a fun little data tidbit that will just highlight the importance of the 420 holiday from a monetary perspective. We looked at 420 sales last year across 5 recreational markets: California, Colorado, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. And sales were exactly 0.420% of that year's sales, 2020, which comparatively means that sales on that Monday were 1.54 times larger than the average day in 2020, which is especially remarkable since April 20th was a Monday, and April 20th was not even halfway through the year. And as we all know, the cannabis market is consistently growing over time. But I'm going to save the real analysis for our experts, Cooper Ashley and Jewel Laurie. If you want to go to the next slide, Jewel. So Cooper is a data analyst with Headset and is the voice behind most of Headset's industry reports, including the recent 420 strategy industry report that will very much complement today's presentation. And we'll be including that in the follow-up email as well. And Jewel, Headset Senior Product Manager, is really the chief architect behind Retailer Premium, and alongside Headset's analytics team has really brought this whole product to life and continues to make some really exciting developments. In today's presentation, Cooper will set the stage for us by shedding light on some historical 420 sales trends. Then Jewel will discuss one of our new premium tools, RFM customer segmentation, and then talk about why you want to use it and how you can best incorporate it into your 420 strategy this year. So without further ado, Cooper and Jewel, I'll let you take it away.
Great, thanks, Joe. I'm going to start us off by looking at historical sales on and around 420, like Joe mentioned. So Jewel, we can just dive right into the next slide. And so I'm starting us off by looking at the entire week of 420. So that's the week leading up to and including the holiday itself. And here we're looking at 420 week sales and discounting and how it compared to the previous 4 weeks each year over the last 5 years in the two oldest recreational cannabis markets, Washington and Colorado. And on this graph, we can see the purple bars there, that year over year, the lift in average daily sales during the 420 week has steadily increased all the way up to a 32% increase last year. And then the trend in discounting is the orange bars there is a little less linear, but I think we can, we can be pretty confident that there will be some relative increase in discounting somewhere between 20 and 30%. That should probably persist into this year. Next slide, please. And so you may be wondering why I'm talking about the entire week of 420 rather than just the holiday itself. And hopefully this chart will help explain why. We could see that over the last 2 years, and especially in 2020, the proportion of sales falling on 420 itself within that total week has been lower than previous years. In 2018, when 420 fell on a Friday, the holiday produced almost a third of the entire week's total sales. But then in 2019, that value fell to about a quarter of the total week sales. And then last year it dropped to less than a fifth of the total week sales. And this reduction in proportional sales on 420 2020, which is a pretty fun date to say out loud, was probably caused by multiple factors. One, of course, was that 420 last year was just about a month into the COVID-19 pandemic. Customers were almost certainly less inclined to gather at stores for the usual the usual 420 reverie due to stay-at-home orders, due to social distancing guidelines, and all that came with COVID. And then also, as Joe already mentioned, the fact that 420 fell on a Monday last year certainly contributed to this trend as well. Mondays are typically one of the lowest sales days of any given week. I think this year we should expect a pretty similar trend on 420, as of course we're still living through a pandemic, and then also this year 420 is going to fall on a Tuesday, which is another typically light sales day. And then as for discounting, that's a little bit harder to predict, but we can see that last year the discount on 420, the holiday itself, really shot up from previous years to about 27%. That may have been because retailers weren't as prepared for a light sales day and were, compensating for that. Or I think more likely, if I were to hypothesize here, I think it's probably that they were worried about COVID cautious customers and were trying to attract as many as possible. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's take a look at last year more closely. And here I've included sales from all 5 of our Insights premium markets: California, Colorado, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. And this is a graph of total sales and average discount by day of the week last year. And so we can see that even though, like I said, it was on a Monday, 420, 2020 was still easily the biggest day of sales in the entire week, eclipsing Friday, April 17th by about $9 million. However, we can see that both sales and discounts were starting to trend upward earlier in the week with, again, Friday 4/17 showing really strong sales and pretty high discounts at about 14%. And this indicates that 420 promotions were probably already underway at many retailers last year during the weekend ahead of the holiday. And so if I were a retailer, I'd take this as a pretty big hint. This year, if you wait to launch your 420 promotions on 420 itself, you will likely have already missed out on some pretty significant holiday-driven revenue. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we know that there was huge revenue growth during the week of 420 last year and every year, but let's take a look at exactly how that growth occurred. So this is a table, which I know is not as pretty as a graph, but I wanted to share a lot of information on one slide here. So I've listed quite a few basket metrics that will help us explore the question of how growth occurred. And firstly, one thing that stands out as not having driven increased sales is customers choosing more expensive items. There, the second column from the right, we can see that the average item price during 420 week was exactly the same as the previous 4 weeks. So there wasn't a big shift towards more premium products than customers had already been purchasing. And then some of the moderate contributors to growth were an increase in average basket size, which was driven entirely by an increase in the number of items per basket. We can see that in the first and second column there. Let me see. And both of those metrics, as we can see on the table, grew by about 8%. But then, as you can see on the right-hand side of the table, the farthest right column, the true driver of growth on 420 was a 22.5% increase in the number of transactions per day during the entire week. And that just means that there were simply more customers walking into cannabis shops during the week of 420 than there were during the previous 4 weeks. And so more customers and more baskets means more opportunity, of course, and it makes it even more critical to target your marketing campaigns and promotions as strategically as possible. And Jewel will be speaking to that in just a moment, but I do have one more slide. And one of those important strategies Jewel is going to discuss is encouraging customers to try new product types on 420, and this chart shows us exactly why. During 420 week last year, there was a pretty clear uptick in baskets that contained more than just a single category. Customers were clearly celebrating the holiday by purchasing a greater variety of product types than they usually do. So here we can see that the proportion of baskets that contain 2 different categories, as in a pre-roll and an edible, or a vape cartridge and an eighth of flower, increased by almost 10%. And then there was an even larger relative increase in baskets containing 3 or more different categories, which rose relatively by 33%. And with that, I'm going to hand the stage over to Jewel, who's going to describe more strategies on how to actually use your customer data to make sure you maximize the 420 holiday this year.
Great, thank you, Cooper. So what we're going to talk about is targeting key customers using RFM segmentation. So this is one of the newest modules available in Retailer Premium, and I'll go a little in depth into what RFM segmentation is first before we jump into an example of how we might use it. So RFM stands for recency, frequency, and monetary value. And we combine these factors to create some segments of your customers based on that. So first we have recency. What that means is, when was the last time they were in the store? Was it a couple days ago? Do they come every couple weeks? Have they not been for, several months? And then we have their frequency and monetary value. So that's how many times do they come in throughout a year, and how much do they spend? So someone who comes in frequently, so a dozen or more times a year, they're spending quite a bit when they do, and they're coming in like they've come in the last 7 days. Those are probably going to be listed as your champions. Someone who maybe doesn't they've come in recently, but they haven't spent quite as much as your champions. Those are going to be loyalists. And someone who maybe hasn't come in as frequently as your champions or loyalists, but they're getting there and they just need to be encouraged to come in more. Those are your promising. So we have all of these different categories based on these 3 factors. And one of the reasons we're really wanting to bring this to your attention for 420 is, as Joe said, discounting, it's a big strategy for 420, but discounts aren't necessarily one size fits all, because for all of these different groups, your goals are going to be different. Your champions, they're coming in like every couple of days, maybe once a week, they're coming in frequently. They don't need anything to encourage them to come in. What they need is something to encourage them to spend more. Whereas someone who hasn't come in for a while, like maybe someone in this hibernating category, what they need is just something that's going to get them through the door. So tailoring different strategies to your different groups, make sure you're targeting the right piece of the puzzle. Are you targeting them coming in, or are you targeting them spending more? So for the purposes of this one, we're going to just look at one strategy for one of these groups, but that's not to say that this is the only strategy you should employ. You should be doing this kind of analysis for all of your important groups, anyone who you feel like is going to drive your sales for this day. So before we get started, I just want to share this with you. So this is for 420, the sales and discounts in 2020, and what it looked like the previous 4 weeks and what it looked like during the week of 420. So one thing that I really want to call out here is that the share of the sales, so that's what this is showing, is the share of sales. So how much of your sales are coming from this segment. It goes down pretty significantly for your champions. So on average, champions are usually about 50% of your sales. So those are your key customers that are coming in week after week, always buying a lot. But on 420, they don't account for as much of your sales. And that's not to say they're not spending the same. They might be buying exactly the same kind of stuff that they buy every week when they come into your store. However, everyone else is coming in more and buying more. So their share of your sales is going down. But for me, I'm thinking, well, these are my best customers. These are people that are really going to want to celebrate this holiday. If they're people that come in as frequently as they do to become champions, these are people that are heavily invested in cannabis culture, right? So let's make this a day that they can really celebrate. Let's find a way to target them. So that's what we're going to focus on for our example here, is what do we do with our champions and how do we make sure that they proportionally grow their baskets with everyone else that's coming in and buying more for this special holiday week. All right, so I'm just going to switch my screen here and go into the app. There we go. All right. All right, are we seeing that? Okay, great. So to start with, I'm here in our customer segmentation overview, and I just want to set the stage of what this particular store looks like. So in this particular store, we have 145 champions, and you can see that they're bringing in the majority of the revenue. We can see that even better if we go down to these pie charts. So our champions are 8%, like 8.5% of our customers, but they are making up over 50% of our sales. And this is just for of all time. So that's really interesting. If we were to grow this group proportionally with the rest of our 420 sales, that means this could be a huge number of sales. So let's get into it and see what we really want this group to do. So to start with, I'm going to go into our basket analysis overview. So that's another premium feature that you can find right here. And I'm just going to hide this for a second so that we can focus up. So I'm looking just at a recent weekend, Friday through Monday, and what's the average basket over a weekend like that. What I'm really interested in is what's the difference between a normal average basket and a 420 average basket. That's going to give me a sense of like the proportional jump that I want my champions to make as well. So right now our average basket is about 40.21. So I'm going to set this now to 420. And I'm going to do the whole weekend because again, last year 420 was on a Monday and it was really kind of working up to 420 that we want to see, right? Ooh, let's actually go to 420 2019 because last year was interesting. And this is a good exercise too, just to make sure that you're looking at, you know, as many. It's a good idea to just go back and check a lot of them. Ooh, that's even lower. All right, but we're seeing our average baskets change. This is, of course, we're looking back. I'm looking at different stores than I looked at before. Anyway, if I did this right, what we would see is that's about a 15% growth in our average basket. So that's what I'm going to want my champion growth to be like. So right now, our champion's average basket is at 38.59. And if we were to grow that about 15%, that would want us to target baskets of about $42 or so. So if I wanted to just do something really simple for my champions, I might do something like, let's do a 10% off if you spend 50. So that would bring baskets up to about $45, and that would start bringing that average basket up there. But there's more that we can do. One of the great things about segmentation is that we have all of this information about who is in the segment. So we can see this list down here, and we can see what their top categories are, and we have their contact information. So we could use this to export into our CRM and message this group directly with special offers and events that are just for them. And we can use a lot of this info to develop a strategy that will make, especially because these are our champions, these are people that we're seeing, you know, week after week that are coming in and spending a lot. So and this is their holiday, this is 420. So we want them to feel special. So this could even be, if you don't use a CRM, you could literally go through and contact these people by hand and have a very white glove service kind of thing. But what I'm looking at here is I'm looking at our customers' top categories, and it looks like we've got a lot of folks that like inhalables, right? We're seeing a lot of vapor pens, flowers, concentrate, pre-roll. But if we remember what Cooper said earlier, there's something about 420 and getting people to try new categories. The more categories in the basket, the bigger the basket. So this might be an opportunity for our people who are our champions that are coming in, they're kind of buying the same thing week after week. They're very set in their ways. It's a holiday, let's celebrate. Let's try something new because, you know, it's a special occasion. So let's take a look at our basket analysis details. And I'm going to set this for 420 last year. And we're going to take a look at what sold last year around 420. Run that. All right. So we can see flour is the thing that makes it into the most baskets. That's, you know, to be expected. Pre-rolls also making it into a lot of baskets. But we're seeing that baskets that contain other things actually end up being bigger baskets than those that just contain flour. If we take a look here, I'm actually going to take capsules out of this equation because it looks like there was probably just a couple of really big capsule baskets on that Friday before. But if we take that out, we can see this one line here really popping out. So I'm going to highlight that one here. So this is beverages. And we can see on a normal day, the average basket for beverage on the Friday before was 39. On the day of 420, our baskets that contain beverages were on average $72. That's huge. That's what I want. That's way above the $42 goal that we have for our champions. So maybe what we want to do is target this beverage category and maybe offer some discounts on beverages if they add them to their cart. Maybe I'm going to work with a beverage vendor right now to make sure that I have pre-stocked enough beverages, because it seems to be something that ends up in a lot more carts on these days. And that might be another way to do it. But just to make sure that this is the strategy I want to go for, I'm going to take a look at one more basket analysis chart, and that is our attachment rate. So attachment rate tells you what sells next to what. And we're looking again for that same 420 weekend. And I want to look at beverages. And guess what? Beverages have sold great with concentrates, edibles, flowers, pre-rolls, vapor pens. Not so great with non-cannabis things, probably because you don't need a lighter in order to consume a beverage. But for everything else, it seems to go along really equally with all other kinds of categories. So this seems like a great thing to promote as an add-on kind of discount to your basket. So maybe something like, you know, you just do a couple bucks off of, or it's like, you know, spend a certain amount and a beverage gets thrown in. There's a lot of different ways you can kind of throw the beverages into the carts with your promotions. And lastly, we didn't really take a look at this, but this is when you're trying to figure out, you know, where do I target? What do I need to stock up more? As I'm, you know, right now is probably the time that we're taking orders to make sure that we've got things ready to go for 420. We have this great in-demand planning, this holiday sales bump analysis. So we can see what the sales lifts are for 420. And that might help us know how much more do we need to order for this coming holiday. Because the one thing that we really don't want to happen on 420 is for everyone to come in expecting to buy all their favorite stuff and for us to just be completely dry. So that is our little analysis there. I'm just going to go back to our slides now. So just in closing, that was just one example of some what you might want to do with champions, going through, looking at the data, being informed by it. But there's all kinds of different things you can do with your different segments. I don't think that targeting just one segment during 420 is necessarily the strategy you want to go for, but you can, using the segment analysis and the tools that we provide, you can do really targeted strategies so that you're getting the right thing out of every group. So for your champions, again, like some kind of early access, exclusivity, maybe you do like, there's a special hour that only these people are allowed to do, like they're shopping before the big 420 rush, so they get access to all of the things that are going to sell out or something like that. For your loyal customers, you can see what their favorite category was, and maybe you want to offer them discounts on that. For your potential loyalists, you want to make sure that they're coming back after spending a lot on 420. So you want to give them a reason to come back, whether that's extra loyalty points or something like that. For your can't lose customers, these are people that just, when they come in, they spend a lot. You want to try to give them a larger discount so that they just keep coming back because it's such a good deal. And for your new customers and visitors, which you're going to get a lot because it's 420 and it's a time that people who aren't necessarily as regular consumers of cannabis are going to be coming into your store. You want to make sure you sign them up for your loyalty program and keep them coming back, because that is how you turn them into loyalists and into champions. All right, and I think Joe's going to come back in and give us some other takeaways.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. And yeah, if you haven't checked out Cooper's recent industry report on 420 strategy, that will touch on a lot of these same topics and just, again, provide some additional color to today's presentation. But just to recap some of today's takeaways, one, we expect the Friday and Saturday before 420 to rival Tuesday's 420 sales this year. So that means you want to be proactive and start your 420 promotions early, at least the weekend before, so that you're not missing out on those customers and making sure that those customers don't shop anywhere else. The champion segment, as defined by our RFM segmentation model, usually drive the majority of your revenue during this day, but new and visiting customers will be your biggest revenue drivers during 420. And with those new customers, you really want to use that as an opportunity to promote your loyalty program and incentivize return trips, maybe even implementing some sort of bounce back campaign to retain those new customers. And lastly, you can really use 420 as that unique opportunity to encourage shoppers to branch out and purchase from other product categories, maybe develop some new brand loyalty or product category affinity. But that's all we have for today. I'm going to open it up to questions. So if you've already chatted in, we'll take some of those. If you haven't, feel free to send us a message. I think, let's see, all right, so first question. In Ontario, is the retailer the producer or the wholesaler, the provincial governments? Cooper, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So in Ontario, it's kind of split. There is provincially run online sales through the website ocs.ca, and that's the only place where you can buy cannabis online in Ontario. But then the brick and mortar market is entirely privately run. So it's kind of like state run for online e-commerce and then private for in-person shopping.
Thank you. All right. What text messaging companies are you partnered with to send segmentation files? I can kind of take that. I know we're partnering with Springbig. We will have an automation within the system so you can push those segments into a campaign seamlessly. But a lot of these, all of the data sets within the RFM segmentation models can be downloaded and then imported into whatever tool you're using, whether that's Sprout, whether that's Stemless, maybe MailChimp if you wanted to target your customers via email. All right, let's see. Would you suggest that we start our 420 sales on Friday 4/16 or wait until Sunday or Monday and run them the whole week? Cooper, I feel like you kind of touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, given what we saw last year, I would definitely start. If I were running a store, I'd probably start on Friday before 420, so that the 16th, I believe that is, because I think, Friday and Saturday are always the biggest days of sales in any given week, except during 420 week, but they still are really significant, as we saw last year. So I would, you're going to have people coming into your shop. I think it's a good opportunity to try to attract 420 business a few days ahead of the actual holiday. So I would definitely start probably Friday.
Yeah, just to add to that, also, with it still being COVID times, you don't want everyone bum rushing your store on one day, right? Because you're not allowed to have as many people in your stores right now, probably. So it's probably better to spread that out over the weekend so that people aren't going to have to wait outside in long lines waiting to get in. So really spreading out that strategy of your discounting and all of that stuff can ensure that people can get in and out of your store and get the face time with bud tenders and not feel pressured to get out of the store really quickly because there's too many people waiting.
There's a couple of questions kind of focused around what avenues we suggest from an advertising perspective to kind of utilize for customer acquisition on 420. And one of them was asking also about social media platforms. I don't know, I've seen a variety of different avenues being utilized. And one of the great tools and functions within our marketing module is you can actually track you can kind of build out an ROI on some of those marketing and recruitment strategies. We have a referral source field. So if your point of sale can capture that data, that referral source data point, where you can kind of see like how new customers were acquired, whether or not that was through Yelp, Weed Maps, Leafly, you can kind of track that over time. But Jewel, Cooper, do you have any insight on kind of maybe what advertising avenues to employ on 420?
I think you hit it on the head, Joe, that using that referral source can be really helpful, and you can start using that right now. Try testing out a couple different strategies leading up to 420 and seeing which ones are really giving you that return, so that for the week of 420, you're using the ones that really work. So I would just recommend like constant experimentation. If you can't use the referral field in your point of sale, or it's hard for your bud tenders to collect that, another way to do it is by using discount codes that are different for each different platform, and then tracking which discount codes are redeemed the most. So there's a lot of different ways to do that and see where your traffic, what things are actually driving traffic, so that you're not wasting your hard-earned money on platforms that just don't work.
For sure. All right. What about this one? Outside of discounts, is there anything else you would recommend dispensaries to put in place for 420? So I think we kind of talked about that a little bit with using kind of the RFM segmentation modeling. I have a lot of customers utilize kind of employee incentives and running employee internal competitions to see who can drive the largest baskets, and then they'll reward them accordingly that day. So that could be like another approach to take. But Cooper, Jewel, any feedback there?
To kind of add to that, so one thing that you can do is work with your vendors to see if anyone can give you, a better price on a product that maybe they have a lot of, and then try to use that as like an add-on product. So when someone's at the register and they're buying their things, that's another thing that you can kind of train your bud tenders to do. Like, hey, we've got a lot of this, just make sure that people are adding it to their basket at the end, especially if it's something like, a cheap pre-roll or something like that, just a little something to boost the size of the basket. You don't necessarily have to discount it at all. It's a lower priced product that's really easy for the consumer to just add to their basket. So a little $5 pre-roll or something like that. That would be another thing you could do. One of the examples they gave for the champions is actually something I've heard of one of our customers doing, which is for their champions, because they were afraid that their champions who normally come in once a week or even a couple times a week actually avoid the week of 420 because they think it's going to be too busy, and they don't get their normal shopping experience. So they would hold like, okay, there's a special hour or 2 hour period on the Friday before 420 that's just for my champions, like a private shopping event where they get to see everything first and get first dibs on all of the great 420 products. So that's another thing you can do, is kind of encourage events and that kind of thing. Have discounts that only last for certain amounts of time to get people into the stores at certain times.
Right.
All of those kinds of things.
Yep. I think we only have time for maybe 2 more questions. What about, Cooper, you may be able to answer this one. Is there an idea of average ticket order size for California in top categories? Do you have that data off the top?
just in here. Well, no, but the slide in which I was showing those basket metrics, that did include data for California last year's, and California is the largest market in that data set, so it would definitely be included if you go to that little table slide. So like, oh, there we go. So that average basket size increase, this does include California data. And then as to categories, I mean, Jewel was showing a little bit on our demo retail account, and she was hinting at the beverage increase. I think, flower and the big categories are still always the biggest categories on 420. It's hard to overtake something like flower or vape pens, but the categories that grow the most on 420 are beverages, edibles, concentrates typically do really well. Those three in particular, and then pre-rolls also have a great day on 420. So it's, you know, it's edibles and beverages are still a relatively small portion of the pie, but as Jewel is showing in her slides, they do appear in many more baskets than usual on 420, and they do grow a lot on the day and during the whole week.
Yep. Okay, well, I think we didn't even get to about 6 or 7 questions, so we'll follow up in a blog post with answers to those, as well as the other questions. And yeah, so that's all the time that we have today, but we hope you reach out and request a demo so that we can learn more about your specific goals and kind of show you how this could potentially work with your data set. So you can either reach out to info@headset.io or go to our website, or you can respond to the follow-up email that will contain the recording and the blog post. So thanks so much, everyone, for your time, and best of luck this year for 420.